This is our first video on color, and I'm going to use it to introduce some big ideas. And we're going to start with paper. Now, paper is going to be the universe that we sort of live in as far as a detailed study of color is concerned. So we have Color Aid, we have hardware store, samples, and as far as paper goes, there's a couple different ways to approach learning color, and one of them is obviously through painting and through mixing color. And then the other one is by using colored paper and learning how to organize things that way. I tend to prefer the paper, so that's how we're going to conduct ourselves here. And one of the main reasons for that is that if you're studying color through painting, there are lots of different things that are going to distract you from the specific details of the color problems you're trying to solve. If you're mixing your colors, you're going to end up feeling obligated towards them, and what'll happen is you'll end up using the colors that you make, whether they're the right color or not. And finding the right color is a really important idea. And as we start sorting and going through some of these things, you'll be able to see what I mean by that, the right color. Because color is all about relationships and what color is next to what color and how they look and how they react and how they're organized in relationship to each other. And if our main concern is how do I make a certain color, we tend not to get very far beyond that. And since everybody kind of already knows that yellow and blue make green, we can sort of start there and push past that and go into some really interesting detail right away. And ultimately, if your whole study of color mixing, if your whole study of color is color mixing, that isn't really going to help you figure out how to organize color, how to strategize about it, how to make color work on your behalf. And the study of color through paper is going to help you do all those things. So what we're going to do as we progress, we're going to talk about sorting in a little bit, because that's going to be a big part of how you just stay organized on your table with the colors that you have in front of you. But we're going to be talking about what color is, because we need some definitions and some clarity on exactly the central ideas of our subject here. And then we're going to be eventually talking about how to use it and how to integrate it into your work, which ultimately is why we're doing all this in the first place. When it comes to paper, it turns out that you really can't have enough. So get as much as you can. This is mostly from the hardware store. And like I said, it's free, and you should get as much as you can. I have a box over here of stuff from the hardware store, and this is not even really enough. But it's a pretty good start. But anyway, we're going to start with our Color Aid paper, and we're just going to talk about color for a minute. So the first thing we want to do with color is talk about what it is. Color is your brain's response to light hitting your eye. Now, there are 3 dimensions of color that are like 3 manifestations of how your brain reacts, and I usually refer to those as dimensions. So the 3 dimensions of color are hue, value, and intensity. So the easiest thing to do is start with hue. Hue is the name of the color. The sort of, it's like the biggest category that everybody can kind of relate to. So we have red, we have green, we have blue. we have primary colors. Let's go about it that way. Let's say blue, yellow, red, and then our secondary colors, green, purple, and orange. So very simply, hue is the name of the color, and then we can get really specific if we want to. We can say those two are yellow, but they're different hues. This one is more orangey, this one's more middle. That one might actually just be green. I'm looking for a yellow that leans a little bit more towards the green side of things. Here we go. So compared to some of these other colors, this one's a little bit greener. So a change in hue that we'll refer to later is really any change at all. It doesn't have to be anything major. Obviously, a change in hue from yellow to blue, that's obviously a huge change. But we can also keep ourselves going with little changes in hue as things progress. So that's hue. Value is how light or dark a color is. So if this is a blue first, we would probably, compared to the table, it's a dark blue. But we also have this color, which maybe is a little bit greener, but it's still blue. And then we have another one that's even a little bit more blue than this one, but that's that relative nature of color that's going to come up over and over and over again. Colors are what they are because of the colors around them and the colors that they touch and that they're near. And we could, pretty much everybody could look at this and say, this is the darkest, this one's middle, and this one's the lightest. If we need lighter blues, I'm sure I can dig some up. I should have laid them out ahead of time. But anyway, that'll get us a nice range of values in blue, and of course, every color has a range of values in it. Any color can be any value, so there's really no end to the different ways that you can kind of play around with the combinations. So light or darkness, that's value. Easy enough. Now the third dimension of color is a little harder to wrap your head around, and that is intensity. And intensity has a bunch of different names, and I use the word intensity. Some people use the term chroma or saturation. As we get going, I try to use those, but before we get into any detail in intensity, I just use the word intensity just to keep things simple. So if value is how much light is hitting your eye, and hue is the name of the color that hits your eye, then intensity is how much color hits your eye. And that can be a little hard to wrap your head around. So let me find some different yellows here that are all similar in one way and then different in another. So, all right, so we have a range of yellows. So which one of these is the yellowest? We would probably, well, we would have to say this one, right? It's the most yellow. And then which one is the least yellow? It would be this, what we refer to as kind of a tan. Maybe something like this as well. But this is these colors can be described as being dull or low intensity. And then this yellow here can be described as having a high intensity. This one is kind of in the middle, and that's the general idea. You'll be able to take any of the characteristics and break them up into a spectrum, let's say, and then you'll be able to start combining some of the different characteristics for what you're looking for. So that's how intensity works, and it works Any color can be any value if it's dull. So if we have a dark yellow, which is what brown is, and then we have a bright yellow, which we have a bunch of them, we can go a little brighter. Yellows are never at their highest intensity. Well, yellows are always at their highest intensities in the light values. You'll never see a bright, dark yellow. Just like purple's the opposite. Purple is really, really bright in your darks, but you're never going to see a bright, light purple. I'm trying to see if I can find any lighter purples. See, that's about as bright as purple's going to get. I should be able to find some lighter ones, but I'm having trouble finding anything that's even close to that. So that's what color basically is in a nutshell. And what I like to do is focus on one characteristic at a time in terms of starting with value and focusing on that, and then moving to intensity. Hue is such an easy dimension to understand. Everyone can already approach it, that we don't really need to spend a ton of time on it. What we don't know about hue, we'll put together as we go and combine it with the other elements. So right now we're going to focus on value. And we're going to start discussing sorting from here. So one of the main activities that we're going to engage in is going to be called sorting. And sorting is taking the colors that you have access to and organizing them with a specific goal in mind. So most of our sorts at the beginning here are going to be about value. So that's a good place for us to start. So what you want to do is just start looking around for grouping your colors by value. So we have a bunch of lighter colors here. We have some darker colors here. We have some colors that are more middle. And I usually tell people to work in groups, like sort of 3 or 4 different values. Let's do that. Now what you want to do is, or what you don't want to do is worry about what color is going in which pile. All you're really concerned about is the value. And you can kind of, it really helps to hold the color up. See, this one is lighter than these, but it's clearly darker than all of these. So maybe it deserves its own pile. And we can go dark. This one is the same thing. It's lighter than over here, but it's darker than this. So maybe that's its own group. Look at that, with some of the stuff from the hardware store made it in. Let's do that. Now, it just so happens that most of these colors are kind of warm. I haven't even really gotten to the cool colors yet. But there we go, middle. We have some darker purples. Like I was talking about brightness, this is really dark and really bright purple. But you can see all these darker colors go together. Doesn't matter what color they are. So this is sorting, and this is how it goes.